Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 inches the morning. Just like every day, Sophia opened her eyes in the small room she shared with two roommates in Brooklyn. The familiar sound of traffic already echoed through the thin windows of the apartment. At 25, she had grown accustomed to a routine that most people would consider exhausting. 3 jobs, night school, and dreams that always seemed one step ahead of her financial reality. Another day, she murmured to herself, running her hands over her tired face. The smell of cheap coffee was already lingering in the kitchen when she dragged herself out of her room. Laura, one of her roommates, was hunched over nursing textbooks with dark circles under her eyes that rivaled Sophia's own. "Are you going to get any sleep today?" Laura asked without looking up from her studies. "Maybe a few hours between the coffee shop and my night job," Sophia replied, filling a mug with coffee that tasted like wet cardboard. The truth was that Sophia had become a master at the art of urban survival. Her first job started at 7:00 inches the morning as a cleaner in a commercial building in Midtown. The work was invisible. She cleaned empty offices before the executives arrived, reorganizing their lives without ever being seen. There was a cruel irony to it, she thought, as if her existence were purposely erased so that others could shine. "Sophia, do you need a ride today?" Olivia, the third roommate, shouted from the shared bathroom. "No, I'll take the subway, thanks." The morning subway was always an experience. Squeezed between sweaty bodies and tired faces, Sophia observed the people around her. Executives in expensive suits checked gleaming phones. College students with designer backpacks discussed weekend plans that cost more than she made in a week. She didn't feel envious exactly. It was more like a quiet curiosity about what it would be like to live without counting every penny. At the commercial building, Sophia greeted Carlos, the cleaning supervisor, with a tired wave. "How do you handle it, girl?" he asked in his English, heavy with a Puerto Rican accent. "3 jobs, college. When do you rest?" "Rest is a luxury, Carlos," she laughed, but there was bitter truth behind the joke. While vacuuming carpets and cleaning bathrooms, Sophia let her mind wander to the previous night's business administration classes. Professor Thompson had talked about strategic management, about how companies made decisions that affected thousands of lives. She absorbed every word like crumbs from a future that still seemed distant but possible. At 11, she rushed to the coffee shop in the East Village where she worked as a server. The place had a forced bohemian charm, frequented by up-and-coming artists and young professionals who could afford $5 for a cappuccino. "Sophia, table 6 is complaining that the latte is cold," said Victor, the manager, without looking up from his computer. "I'll remake it," she replied, swallowing her irritation. The customer at table 6 was a young man in a suit who probably made in one day what she made in a week. "Sorry for the inconvenience," Sophia said, replacing the drink with a smile she had perfected over months of practice. "Pay more attention next time," he replied without looking at her, as if she were part of the furniture. It was always like this. Sophia existed in the spaces between other people's important lives. She served, cleaned, organized, but was rarely seen as a complete person with her own dreams and ambitions. During her lunch break, she sat on the small bench behind the coffee shop and opened her organizational theory book. The pages were highlighted and scribbled on, evidence of late-night studying, fighting against the sleep that always won. "Why do you study so much?" asked Megan, a younger coworker. "I mean, it's not like it's going to change anything." Sophia looked at her, surprised by the resignation in the girl's voice. "Because it has to change," she replied firmly. "I can't accept that this is all there is." In the afternoon, she rushed to her third job at a casual restaurant in Williamsburg. As a waitress, she navigated between crowded tables, balancing plates and conversations, always with the same professional smile plastered on her face. "Sophia, table 12 wants to speak to the manager," shouted Brian the cook. The complaint was about an undercooked burger. The customer, a middle-aged woman with expensive jewelry, spoke as if Sophia were personally responsible for the culinary disappointment. "This is unacceptable. Don't you know who you're dealing with?" "I'm sorry. I'll take care of this right away," Sophia said, keeping her voice calm despite the public humiliation. It was almost midnight when she finally got home. The apartment was quiet, her roommates already asleep. Sophia sat at the small kitchen table with her book spread out, a cup of cheap tea in her hands. Her eyes burned with fatigue, but she had an accounting exam the next morning. Every page read was a step toward a different future, even when it sometimes seemed impossible. One day, she whispered to herself, flipping through the pages, "One day, this will be worth it." Her phone buzzed. A message from Natalie, her best friend since high school. "Hey, I have a work opportunity for you tomorrow night. Could be interesting." Sophia looked at the message, curious. Natalie always had ideas, some good, others not so much. But at that moment, exhausted and surrounded by books, Sophia couldn't imagine that this simple message would be the first thread in a web that would completely change the fabric of her existence. The phone rang 3 times before Sophia could answer it, still half asleep after only 4 hours of sleep. "Sophia, are you awake?" Natalie's cheerful voice echoed through the small room. "I am now." Sophia grumbled, looking at the clock. It was 7:00 the morning, and she had exactly 15 minutes to get ready before rushing to her first job. "Sorry to wake you up early, but I need to talk about that opportunity I mentioned yesterday. Can I stop by at lunch?" Sophia rubbed her eyes, trying to process her friend's words through the fog of exhaustion. "Natalie, I barely have time to breathe, let alone." "Sophia, it's $300 for 6 hours of work." The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. "Samba Megan." Sophia automatically did the math in her head. That was more than she made in 2 weeks at the coffee shop, or enough to pay half her college tuition. $300, she repeated, now fully awake. "Yeah, I know it's a lot of money. That's why I want to explain in person. Meet me at the coffee shop at 2. "Okay," Sophia agreed, already feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension growing in her chest. The day dragged by at a torturously slow pace. At her cleaning job, Sophia found herself doing mental calculations. $300 could mean 2 weeks of decent food or new books instead of used ones. Or even taking a break from one of her jobs for a few days. "You're different today," Carlos observed, noticing she seemed distracted. "Something good?" "Maybe," Sophia replied, wiping down a conference room table. "Maybe an opportunity." At the coffee shop, the morning passed at a frustratingly slow speed. Every customer seemed to take forever to place their order. Every cappuccino took ages to be ready. When it was finally 2, Sophia was already biting her nails with anxiety. Natalie arrived right on time, as always. She had that annoying quality of always looking impeccable, even after a day of work. Her blonde hair was perfectly brushed, her makeup intact, and she wore a dress that probably cost more than Sophia made in a month. "You have that look of someone who didn't sleep," Natalie said, hugging her friend. "Because I didn't sleep." "Come on, Natalie. What kind of job is this?" They sat at a table in the back, away from the curious ears of other employees. Natalie pulled out her phone and showed some photos. "It's a gala in Manhattan tonight. I need a few more people to serve drinks and canapés." Sophia looked at the photos. It was clearly a high-end event. People in tuxedos and designer dresses, in an environment that screamed wealth. "Natalie, I've never worked this kind of event. I have no idea how to behave around these people." "That's exactly why it's perfect," Natalie smiled. "You don't need to know how to behave. You just need to be invisible." The word echoed strangely in Sophia's ears. Invisible. She was already invisible most of the time. Cleaning empty offices, serving coffee to people who barely noticed her, clearing plates from tables without getting a thank you. "What do you mean invisible?" "The staff shouldn't draw attention. You serve the drinks, smile politely, and you practically don't exist to the guests." "It's easier than it sounds." Natalie leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Sophia, I know $300 is a lot of money for you. I also know you're killing yourself with these 3 jobs. One night, 6 hours, and you make what would normally take you weeks to save up." Sophia bit her lower lip, a habit she'd had since childhood when she got nervous. "What if I do something wrong? What if I drop something or talk to someone I shouldn't?" "It won't happen," Natalie said with a confidence Sophia envied. "You're one of the hardest working people I know. If anyone can do this, it's you." Sophia looked out the coffee shop window, watching ordinary people walking down the street. People like her, running from one place to another, carrying the weight of bills to pay and postponed dreams. "Where's the event?" "Upper East Side. Penthouse of a residential building, as fancy as you can imagine." "And what kind of people will be there?" Natalie hesitated for a moment before answering. "Rich people, Sophia. Very rich business owners. Heirs. People who move millions without blinking. But like I said, you'll be invisible to them." Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, picturing her bank account. She had exactly $42 and still needed to pay for the subway for the rest of the week. What do I need to wear? Basic black outfit, nothing flashy. I can lend you something if you don't have anything. I have black pants and a blouse. Perfect. Sophia took a deep breath. There was something about this opportunity that made her uncomfortable, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Maybe it was just fear of the unknown, or the feeling that she was about to enter a world she definitely wasn't born into. Okay, she finally said. I'll do it. Natalie smiled, clearly relieved. Great. I'll send you the address. You need to be there at 8 tonight. Ask for Patricia Harrison. She's the event coordinator. Patricia Harrison. Sophia repeated, memorizing the name. Sophia. Natalie took her hand across the table. I know it might seem intimidating, but think about the money. $300 for one night. When was the last time you had that amount in your account? Sophia couldn't remember. Maybe never. Thanks for thinking of me, Sophia said, squeezing her friend's hand. When Natalie left, Sophia sat looking out the window for a few more minutes. There was a strange feeling in the air, as if something important was about to happen. She didn't know it yet. But this decision, accepting to serve drinks to rich people at a Manhattan penthouse, would be the first domino in a series of events that would transform not only her financial situation, but her entire perspective on who she was and what she deserved from life. At 6:00 the evening, when she finally got home, Sophia stood in front of her small bedroom mirror, trying to imagine what this night would be like. The address Natalie had given led Sophia to a part of Manhattan she only knew in passing. Getting off the subway at the 77th Street station, she felt like she had crossed an invisible border into another country. The streets were cleaner, the sidewalks wider, and even the air seemed different, less heavy, as if even pollution respected the wealth of the neighborhood. Sophia checked the address on her phone once more, her heart beating faster with each block she walked. The buildings around her were monuments of stone and glass, uniformed doormen opening doors of cars that cost more than she would make in 5 years. Number 847. She murmured to herself, stopping in front of a skyscraper that seemed to touch the clouds. The main entrance was all marble with bronze details that reflected the golden lights of the lobby. Sophia hesitated on the sidewalk, watching other people entering, women in dresses that looked like works of art, men in impeccable tuxedos, all moving with a confidence she had never seen up close. Can I help you? The voice came from a doorman wearing a uniform more elegant than any outfit Sophia had ever owned. I'm with the staff for the penthouse event. The doorman examined her from head to toe, his professional gaze quickly assessing her appearance. Sophia suddenly became extremely aware of her basic black blouse, of the pants that were good enough for the restaurant in Williamsburg, but that here seemed glaringly inadequate. Service entrance around back, he said, pointing to a side street. Of course, service entrance. Sophia felt her cheeks flush, but nodded and walked in the direction indicated. The back entrance was significantly less glamorous, a simple metal door with an intercom beside it. I'm here for the event. My name is Sophia Reynolds. Go up to the 47th floor. Someone will meet you at the elevator. The service elevator was small and undecorated, very different from the elevator she had seen in the main lobby. As she went up, Sophia tried to calm herself, mentally repeating Natalie's instructions. Smile. Be polite. Be invisible. The doors opened directly into a service area that looked more like a military command center. People dressed in black were running back and forth carrying trays, adjusting flower arrangements that were larger and more elaborate than any decoration Sophia had ever seen. You must be Sophia. A tall woman, about 50 years old, approached with a tablet in her hand. She had perfectly styled blonde hair and an expression that suggested absolute efficiency. I'm Patricia Harrison, event coordinator. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Harrison. Just Patricia is fine. Have you worked events at this level before? Sophia hesitated. The question sounded more like a test than genuine curiosity. I have customer service experience. I work as a waitress. Patricia analyzed her with a critical look, as if evaluating whether Sophia would be suitable for what she had in mind. Rule number 1. You don't exist. The guest shouldn't notice your presence unless they need something. Rule number 2. No unnecessary conversation. A yes, sir, or my pleasure is sufficient. Rule number 3. If something goes wrong, you come talk to me. Don't try to handle it yourself. Understood. Great. Laura will show you where to get the trays. The event starts in 15 minutes. Sophia was led through a professional kitchen that looked like something from a TV show. Chefs in impeccable uniforms prepared canapes that looked like little works of art, while others arranged champagne glasses on silver trays. First time here? Asked Laura, a girl about 20 years old, who seemed comfortable in the environment. First time at any event like this, Sophia admitted, "You'll get used to it. The people here have a lot of money, but most of the time they don't even notice you exist. It's kind of liberating, actually." Sophia picked up a tray with champagne glasses and followed Laura through a door that led to the main hall. What she saw on the other side literally took her breath away. The penthouse was larger than the entire apartment she shared with her 2 roommates. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan that looked like a postcard. The furniture was an elegant mix of modern and classic leather sofas that probably cost more than a car, coffee tables that were clearly works by famous designers. But what impressed Sophia most were the people. She had never seen so much wealth concentrated in one place. The women wore jewelry that caught the light in an almost hypnotic way, and the men had that air of people who never had to worry about money. There was a quality in the way they moved, how they spoke, a confidence that came from generations of privilege. "Sophia, circulate around the terrace area," Patricia instructed, appearing beside her. "Keep the trays always full, and remember, be discreet." Sophia nodded and began circulating through the environment. It was surreal to be so close to a world she had only read about or seen on TV. Conversations reached her ears in fragments. Discussions about trips to country houses in France, investments involving figures she couldn't even pronounce, children at universities whose tuition would be enough to support a family for months. "Thank you," said a middle-aged man, taking a glass without even looking at her. Sophia smiled automatically, but he had already turned away to continue a conversation about corporate acquisitions. It was exactly as Natalie had said. She was invisible. As the night progressed, Sophia began to notice the subtleties of that world, the way people greeted each other, air kisses that didn't even touch cheeks, how they quickly evaluated each other, identifying brands, prices, status, how they laughed at jokes that weren't even funny just because they came from the right person. It was when she was refilling her tray in the kitchen that she heard Patricia talking to another organizer. "We need to be careful with this new batch of staff. Some of them clearly don't understand their place here." Sophia didn't know if the comment was specifically directed at her, but she felt her face heat up anyway. Returning to the hall, she tried to be even more discreet, moving along the edges of groups, offering champagne without making prolonged eye contact. But there was something hypnotic about that environment, the way the light from crystal chandeliers danced on the walls, the sophisticated murmur of conversations, the feeling of being at the center of a world that operated by completely different rules from hers. It was when she was crossing the main hall, carefully balancing a full tray, that she felt a different kind of look from the others. It wasn't the distracted look of someone grabbing a drink, nor the evaluative look of someone checking if the service was adequate. It was a look that actually saw her. Sophia turned her head discreetly and met the eyes of a man across the hall. He was tall, probably in his late 30s, with well-cut brown hair and a clearly tailored suit. But what made her stop for a second wasn't his appearance. It was the way he looked at her, as if she were the only real person in that room full of performances. Their eyes met for just a moment before Sophia forced herself to look away. Her heart was beating faster, and she wasn't quite sure why. The gaze persisted. Even when Sophia forced herself to look away and continue her work, she could feel that he was still watching her. It was a strange sensation. After hours of being completely ignored by all the guests, suddenly there was someone who not only noticed her, but seemed genuinely interested in who she was. Trying to maintain her professional composure, Sophia continued circulating through the hall, offering champagne and collecting empty glasses. But her awareness was divided, half focused on work, half mesmerized by the presence of that man who continued observing her from afar. "Are you okay?" asked Laura, passing by her with a tray of canapés. "You seem kind of distracted." "I'm fine," Sophia replied quickly, forcing a smile, just trying not to drop anything. For the next 20 minutes, Sophia made a conscious effort not to look in the direction where he was standing. She focused on the conversations around her, trying to better understand this world, to which she was being briefly exposed. "The art market is absolutely insane this year," said a woman with a pearl necklace that was probably worth more than the house where Sophia grew up. "We bought a Monet for $15 million last week, and it's already worth $15 million, replied the man beside her as if they were discussing the price of dinner. "What a bargain. We paid 22 for a much smaller Picasso last month." Sophia almost choked. $15 million. It was more money than she could even comprehend. It represented entire lifetimes of work. Generations of families who could live comfortably on a fraction of that amount. "Excuse me." A deep voice sounded behind her. Sophia turned around and felt her heart race. It was him. Up close, he was even more impressive than he had seemed from afar. He had blue eyes that seemed to actually see through people, and there was something in his expression that was different from the other guests, less arrogant, more human. "Yes, sir," Sophia replied, maintaining the professional tone Patricia had instructed. "Could you bring me a whiskey? Macallan 25, if you have it." "Of course, sir." "One moment." Sophia walked toward the bar, her legs slightly shaky. It was ridiculous. She had served hundreds of customers over the years. But there was something about this man that made her nervous in a completely different way. The bartender, an experienced professional with precise movements, prepared the drink without hesitation. Sophia noticed that the bottle of Macallan 25 probably cost more than she made in 3 months. When she returned, he was standing near the windows, looking at the nighttime view of Manhattan. The city stretched infinitely in all directions, a sea of lights that twinkled like earthbound stars. "Your whiskey, sir," she said, offering the drink on a small tray. "Thank you." He took the glass, but instead of dismissing her immediately like all the others had done, he remained there. "Is this your first time working an event like this?" Sophia hesitated. Patricia had been clear about not maintaining unnecessary conversations, but he had asked a direct question. It would be rude not to answer. "Yes, sir. It's quite different from what I'm used to. I imagine it is." He took a sip of the whiskey, his eyes never leaving her face. "And what do you think of all this?" The question caught her completely off guard. No one had asked for her opinion about anything during the entire night. In fact, she couldn't remember the last time someone from such a different social class had shown any interest in her thoughts. "It's impressive," she replied carefully. "Very different from my world." "Your world?" he repeated as if he was savoring the words. "And what is your world like?" Sophia looked around quickly, checking if Patricia was nearby. She was on the other side of the hall, coordinating something with the kitchen staff. "Simpler," Sophia said honestly. "More real, maybe." Something changed in his expression when she said that. A genuine smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Very different from the political smile she had seen throughout the party. "Real," he repeated. "That's an interesting word. When was the last time someone told me something real?" Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. There was a melancholy in his voice that contrasted completely with the glamorous environment around them. "Ethan," a feminine voice interrupted the moment. A stunning woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dress that probably cost more than Sophia's car if she had one approached them. "I was looking for you. Catherine Whitman is here, and you know how upset she gets when you don't greet her personally." "Of course. Victoria." "One moment." He turned back to Sophia. "Thank you for the drink." "Sophia," she said, before she could stop herself. "Sophia," he repeated as if memorizing the name. "Ethan Hayes, it was a pleasure meeting you." And then he was gone, being pulled back into the social whirlwind of the party. Sophia stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. Ethan Hayes. The name sounded familiar somehow, but she couldn't identify from where. "Sophia." Patricia's voice cracked like a whip behind her. "What were you doing?" Sophia turned around, her heart racing for a completely different reason now. "He asked me for a whiskey, ma'am. I was just—" "You were talking to him for 5 minutes." Patricia stared at her with an expression that made it clear Sophia had crossed an important line. "Staff doesn't chat with guests, especially not with Ethan Hayes." "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Ethan Hayes is heir to one of New York's largest real estate empires. He shouldn't be bothered with casual conversation from staff. Sophia felt her face heat up with shame and anger. She hadn't bothered anyone. He had initiated the conversation, had asked questions, had seemed genuinely interested in her answers. "It won't happen again," she said, keeping her voice controlled. "I hope not. One word about this kind of behavior reaching the wrong ears, and you'll never get work at a decent event in this city again." Patricia walked away, leaving Sophia alone near the windows where she had talked with Ethan. She looked at the view he had been contemplating moments before, trying to see the city through his eyes. What did someone born with so much privilege see when they looked at all those lights? For the rest of the night, Sophia maintained strict distance from Ethan Hayes, although she couldn't help noticing him circulating through the hall. He seemed comfortable in that environment, greeting people, laughing at the right times, perfectly playing the role he was born to perform. But from time to time she caught his gaze searching for her through the crowd, and there was always something in those blue eyes that suggested their conversation had meant more to him than just a polite exchange with staff. When the event finally ended at 2:00 the morning, Sophia was physically and emotionally exhausted. Patricia handed her the $300 in cash without ceremony, as if it were a purely transactional business. Going down in the service elevator, Sophia couldn't get Ethan Hayes out of her head. There was something about him, the way he had actually listened to her, how he had seemed genuinely interested in her perspective, that was completely different from any interaction she had ever had with someone from that world. Walking through the empty streets toward the subway, Sophia found herself imagining what it would be like to live in a world where real conversations were possible across class barriers. She still didn't know that Ethan Hayes was thinking exactly the same thing. 3 days after the event, Sophia could still feel the weight of the $300 in her pocket. She had paid half of her overdue college tuition and bought enough food for 2 weeks. For the first time in months, she didn't have to choose between dinner and breakfast, but what really remained on her mind wasn't the money. It was the conversation with Ethan Hayes. The way he had actually listened to her answers, as if her opinions mattered, it was a feeling she wasn't used to, especially coming from someone so clearly outside her world. "Earth to Sophia," said Victor, snapping his fingers in front of her face. "Table 3 has been waiting for their cappuccino for 5 minutes. "Sorry," Sophia murmured, returning to the reality of the coffee shop. It was Thursday afternoon, and the place was full of the usual rush of professionals grabbing coffee between meetings. She was preparing the cappuccino when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Hello, Sophia. This is Ethan Hayes. Natalie gave me your number. I'd like to talk to you if possible." Sophia almost dropped the cup she was holding. How did Natalie have his number? And more importantly, why did he want to talk to her? "Sophia, what the hell are you doing?" Victor appeared beside her, clearly irritated. The cappuccino was overflowing. She quickly turned off the machine, cleaned up the mess, and delivered the drink to the customer. Her hands were trembling slightly when she typed her response. "Hello, Mr. Hayes. Of course, we can talk." The reply came almost immediately. "Can you meet me tomorrow? There's a coffee shop on the Upper West Side, Café Lucinda at 82nd and Columbus." Arden. Sophia looked around the coffee shop where she worked. The contrast between that environment and where he was proposing to meet was absurd. But there was something about the invitation that intrigued her deeply. "I'll be there." On Friday, Sophia left her cleaning job early, claiming she wasn't feeling well. Technically, it wasn't a lie. Her stomach was churning with nervousness. Café Lucinda was exactly the kind of place she had imagined, elegant without being ostentatious, with sophisticated decor and prices that made her eyes water. Sophia arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a simple coffee that cost almost the same as she spent on food in an entire day, and chose a corner table. Ethan arrived promptly at 2, wearing dark jeans and a casual shirt that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly salary. Even dressed more casually, there was something about him that screamed privilege. His posture, the way people automatically moved aside to let him pass. "Sophia," he smiled, approaching the table. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation. Mr. Hayes." "Ethan, please." He sat across from her, ordering an espresso from the waitress, who appeared instantly upon noticing his presence. "How are you? Did you get home safely after the party?" "I did, yes. Thank you for asking." There was a slightly uncomfortable silence while he stirred sugar into his coffee. Sophia didn't know what to expect from this conversation, and clearly he was searching for the right words. "Can I be honest with you?" he finally asked. "Of course. I haven't been able to stop thinking about our conversation on Tuesday, about your response when I asked about your world being more real." Sophia felt her face heat up. "It was just a comment." "No, it wasn't. It was the most genuine thing anyone has said to me in months, maybe years." He leaned forward, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "Do you have any idea how long it's been since anyone told me anything real?" Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. There was a vulnerability in his voice that contrasted completely with the privileged environment he came from. "Tell me about yourself," he continued, "about your real life." For the next hour, Sophia found herself talking more than she had in months, about the 3 jobs, about studying until dawn, about dreaming of a future where she wouldn't have to count every penny. Ethan listened with an attention she had never experienced, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested. "And you?" she finally asked. "What's it like growing up in your world?" Ethan laughed, but there was bitterness in the sound. "Privilege comes with its own prisons. I always knew my life was already planned before I was even born. Inherit the company, marry someone from the right social circle, perpetuate the family legacy, but you must have choices. You'd think so, right?" He took a sip of coffee. But when you grow up hearing that you have responsibilities to future generations, that hundreds of jobs depend on your decisions, that the family reputation is in your hands, choices become illusory, and what did you really want to do? Social architecture, housing projects for low-income people, use resources to create something that really mattered. He smiled sadly. Not exactly what my father had in mind when he sent me to Harvard Business School. Sophia was absorbing this revelation when her phone rang. It was Natalie. Sophia, are you free to work tonight? Same event as last week. Same pay. Sophia looked at Ethan, who had clearly heard the conversation. Is it Patricia Harrison again? He asked. How do you know? Because Victoria Whitman is throwing another party tonight. Probably at the same place. Sophia hesitated. The first experience had been intense. But the money, you should go, Ethan said. But this time, if Patricia is rude to you, I want you to tell me why. Because some people need to learn that having money doesn't give them the right to treat others as if they were invisible. Sophia arrived at the event at 8, more confident this time because she already knew the environment. Patricia greeted her with the same professional coldness as before, but there was something different in her look, a more careful assessment. Same rules as before, Patricia said, especially about not bothering guests with unnecessary conversations. The party was smaller than the previous one, but no less opulent. Sophia recognized some faces from the week before, including Victoria Whitman, who seemed to be the center of attention in a dress that probably cost more than a car. For 2 hours, everything went normally. Sophia circulated with trays, being efficiently invisible when it happened. She was passing near a group of women when one of them, the same one who had talked about buying Monets the week before, spilled red wine on the clearly expensive Persian rug. "Oh my God," the woman exclaimed. "What a disaster." Sophia immediately crouched down to help, grabbing napkins to try to clean as much as possible before the stain set. "What are you doing?" Patricia's voice cut through the air like a blade. Sophia looked up, still kneeling on the floor. "I was trying to help with the stain." "Get up immediately." Patricia pulled her by the arm with more force than necessary. "You don't touch anything in this house without permission." The group of women had stopped talking and was watching the scene. Sophia felt her face burn with humiliation as she stood up. "I was just trying to help." "You were trying to draw attention," Patricia said loud enough for several people to hear. "Girls like you always do this. You think you can infiltrate this world by pretending to be helpful." Sophia felt as if she'd been slapped in the face. "Girls like me, you know exactly what I mean. Poor little things who come to work at events like this, thinking they're going to impress someone rich enough to change their lives." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia was paralyzed between humiliation and anger, aware that dozens of eyes were fixed on her. "That's enough." The voice came from behind her. Sophia turned and saw Ethan Hayes walking toward the group, his expression more serious than she had ever seen. "Ethan." Patricia smiled nervously. "I was just dealing with a small situation." "The situation," Ethan said, stopping beside Sophia. "Is that you just publicly humiliated a personal guest of mine?" "Guest?" Patricia blinked, confused. "Sophia was personally invited by me," Ethan said, his voice carrying an authority that made the entire hall fall silent. "And I don't tolerate my guests being treated with disrespect." He offered his arm to Sophia. "Shall we get a drink?" Sophia hesitated for just a second before accepting his arm. As they walked toward the bar, she could feel the gazes of the entire hall following them. And for the first time since arriving in that world, she didn't feel invisible, she felt seen. She felt protected, and something inside her began to change. In the 3 days following Ethan's intervention at the party, Sophia couldn't concentrate on anything. During her morning cleaning job, she found herself thinking about the way he had positioned himself beside her, openly challenging Patricia Harrison in front of all those important people. At the coffee shop, she spilled coffee and mixed up orders, lost in memories of the feeling of being defended by someone. "You've been on another planet this week," observed Laura, her roommate, finding Sophia distracted in the kitchen on a Monday morning. "Just tired," Sophia replied, automatically stirring the coffee she had forgotten to drink. "Tired or in love?" Laura smiled, sitting at the small table. "Because you have that look of someone who can't stop thinking about someone." Sophia almost choked on her coffee. "It's nothing like that. It's just complicated." Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Good morning, Sophia. I hope you're well. Would you like to have lunch with me today? I know a quiet place where we can talk without interruptions." Sophia looked at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to immediately respond yes, but another part, the more cautious part, shaped by years of hardship, whispered that this was all too dangerous. "Who is it?" asked Laura, noticing Sophia's expression. "Someone he met at me side job. Someone special?" Sophia didn't know how to answer. Was Ethan special? Or was he just a bored rich man temporarily intrigued by someone from a different world? "I don't know yet," she replied to the message. "I can meet you at 2 if that works." The response came quickly. "Perfect. I'll send you the address." The restaurant Ethan chose was in the village, a small and cozy place that seemed like a well-kept secret. It wasn't ostentatious like the Upper East Side places, but Sophia could tell from the quality of ingredients on the menu that it wasn't exactly cheap. Ethan was already waiting when she arrived, wearing jeans and a simple shirt, but Sophia was beginning to understand that even his most casual clothes probably cost more than she made in months. "Thank you for coming," he said, standing to greet her. "How are you after what happened at the party?" "I'm fine," Sophia replied, sitting across from him. "Thank you for what you did." Patricia Harrison needed to hear that a long time ago. No one should be treated that way. They ordered lunch. Sophia automatically chose the cheapest dish on the menu, a habit Ethan seemed to notice. "You can order whatever you want," he said gently. "It's on me." "You don't need to, Sophia," he interrupted her. "Let me do this, please." There was something in his voice. It wasn't pity, but a genuine kindness that made Sophia accept. During lunch, the conversation flowed naturally. Ethan asked about her studies, about her dreams. After college, Sophia found herself talking about ambitions she rarely admitted even to herself, about wanting to work at a company where she could really make a difference, about dreaming of having enough financial stability to help her mother. "And you," she asked, "do you still think about social architecture?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, playing with his fork. "Every day. But it's complicated when you have a family empire to inherit. Why does it have to be one or the other?" "What do you mean?" Sophia leaned forward, excited by the idea that was forming. "Couldn't you use your family company's resources for social projects? Create a division dedicated to affordable housing?" Ethan looked at her as if she had just solved a puzzle he had been trying to put together for years. "You know, that's a brilliant idea. It's just common sense," Sophia said, blushing slightly. "No, it's not. It's vision. It's exactly the kind of perspective that's missing in my world." They talked for another 2 hours, the restaurant emptying around them without them noticing. Sophia discovered that Ethan had graduated in architecture from Columbia before doing the MBA his father required. He had designed housing projects as a hobby, keeping them in drawers like secret dreams. "Can I show you something?" he asked, hesitant. Sophia nodded, and he pulled out his phone, showing photos of drawings and floor plans. "These are projects I do in my spare time. Compact but dignified apartments with community spaces, green areas." Sophia studied the images, impressed by the level of detail and care. "This is incredible." "Ethan, how many families could benefit? With the right investment, hundreds, thousands eventually. Then why don't you do it?" "Because my father sees it as unproductive philanthropy. He wants immediate financial returns. What if there was a way to show that social projects can also be profitable?" Ethan looked at her intently. "Do you really believe that?" "I believe you can find a way. You have resources, education, connections. I only have the desire to change things, but you have the power to actually make it happen." When they finally left the restaurant, it was almost 5. Ethan insisted on calling an Uber for Sophia, but she refused. "I need to take the subway anyway. I have to work at the restaurant at 6. 3 jobs, he murmured. "How do you do it?" "It's what needs to be done." They walked together to the subway station. At the entrance, Ethan hesitated. "Sophia, can I ask you a personal question?" "You can. Are you dating anyone? I mean, are you seeing someone?" Sophia felt her heart race. "I don't have time for relationships." "And you?" "Nothing serious. My mother is always trying to set me up with daughters of suitable families." They stood at the station entrance, people rushing past them. There was tension in the air, as if both were on the verge of saying something important. "Sophia," Ethan finally said, "I know we're from very different worlds, but I would really like to see you again, not as a favor or out of pity, because I genuinely enjoy your company." Sophia looked into his eyes, searching for signs that this was just a temporary whim of a rich man. But what she saw was sincerity, and maybe something more. "I would like that too," she replied. Ethan smiled, the first genuinely happy smile she had seen from him. "How about dinner on Friday? I know a place in the village you'll like." "Okay, but I pay my share." "Sophia, I'm serious, Ethan. If we're going to do this, it needs to be as equals. He seemed to understand that this was important to her. All right, you choose the place. Then, Sophia went down the subway stairs with a smile she couldn't erase. For the first time in a long time, she had something to look forward to that didn't involve work or studies. She still didn't know that Ethan was standing at the station entrance, watching her disappear into the crowd with the same expression of someone who had just discovered something precious they didn't know they were looking for. Nor did she imagine that 3 blocks away in an expensive cafe, Beatrice Hayes was receiving a detailed report from a private investigator about the waitress her son was meeting. 2 weeks had passed since Sophia and Ethan began meeting regularly. What had started as casual dinners had transformed into long walks through Central Park, conversations in small coffee shops, and a connection that surprised both of them with its depth. He discovered that Ethan was different from anyone she had ever met. He really listened when she spoke, remembered small details about her life, and there was a kindness in him that contrasted with the cold world he came from. Ethan, in turn, found in Sophia an authenticity he had forgotten existed. She had no ulterior motives, wasn't impressed by his money, and challenged his ideas respectfully, but firmly. It was a Friday night when Ethan suggested she come to his apartment for dinner. "I can cook for you," he had said during a walk along Riverside. "Nothing extravagant, just the 2 of us talking." Sophia hesitated. Going to his apartment seemed like a significant step towards something more serious. "You don't need to worry," Ethan added, noticing her hesitation. "No pressure. I just want a place where we can talk without waiters interrupting." Ethan's apartment was on the Upper East Side, occupying 2 floors of a pre-war building. When Sophia entered, she was impressed not by the opulence, though it was clearly expensive, but by the good taste. It was elegant without being ostentatious, with architecture books scattered on tables and plants that showed someone actually lived there. "It's beautiful," she said, observing the large windows that offered a view of the park. "Thank you. I decorated it myself. My mother hated it, said it looked too intellectual for a Hayes." Ethan had prepared a simple but delicious dinner: grilled salmon, asparagus, and a wine that probably cost more than Sophia made in a week. They ate in the living room, sitting on the floor on cushions like an indoor picnic. "Tell me about your family," Sophia asked, taking a sip of wine that was making her head spin slightly. "My father built the empire from nothing," Ethan said, reflecting. "He was always obsessed with status, with proving we were important. My mother, she was born rich, so for her it was always natural. And you?" "I always felt like I was playing a role, the perfect heir with the right friends, making the right choices." He looked at her. "Until I met you." "What do you mean?" "With you, I can just be myself. I don't need to impress anyone or maintain an image." Sophia felt her heart race. There was an intensity in his gaze that left her breathless. "Ethan." "Sophia, can I be honest about something?" She nodded. "I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Sophia felt as if the world had stopped for a moment. I feel something very strong for you too," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan moved closer slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When their lips met, it was different from any kiss Sophia had ever experienced. It was gentle but intense, loaded with weeks of accumulated tension. When they separated, both were breathing irregularly. "Sophia," Ethan whispered, his forehead touching hers. "Yes. Are you sure about this? About us?" In response, she kissed him again. This time, with more urgency, Ethan pulled her closer, his hands finding her waist gently caressing over her blouse. They moved to the couch, the kisses becoming deeper, more necessary. Ethan slid his fingers through her hair, marveling at the softness. Sophia felt as if she were melting under his touch, a completely new sensation taking over her body. "Ethan," she whispered against his lips. I've never done this before." He stopped immediately, pulling back enough to look into her eyes. "Never." Sophia felt tears of nervousness beginning to form in her eyes. "It's my first time," she admitted, tears now streaming down her face. "I know you're probably used to more experienced women." Ethan wiped away her tears with his thumb, his touch incredibly gentle. "Sophia, look at me." She raised her eyes, finding an expression of absolute tenderness on his face. "There's no rush at all. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be ever if you don't want it. What matters is how you feel." "I want to," she said with a trembling but determined voice. "I want to be with you. I'm just nervous." Ethan hugged her, holding her against his chest. "There's nothing to worry about. We'll go slowly at your pace." If you want to stop at any moment, you just need to say so. They spent the next hour simply kissing and talking quietly. Ethan was incredibly patient, letting Sophia get used to each new sensation. When they finally moved to the bedroom, it was because she was ready. What happened between them was marked by an emotional intimacy that transcended the physical. Ethan was gentle and careful, whispering words of encouragement, constantly checking if she was okay. Sophia discovered a passion within herself that she didn't know existed, her nails finding his back in moments of greatest intensity, their bodies moving in perfect harmony. Afterward, lying intertwined, Sophia cried again. But this time from happiness and relief. It was perfect. She whispered against his chest. "You're perfect," Ethan replied, kissing the top of her head. Ethan. "Yes. Thank you for making this special. Thank you for trusting me." They stayed awake until dawn, talking about everything and nothing, discovering small details about each other. Sophia told him about her fears regarding the future, about how she sometimes felt lost in the world. Ethan spoke about the pressure of living a life he hadn't chosen, about how she had changed his perspective on what really mattered. When Sophia finally fell asleep in his arms, Ethan stayed awake longer, watching her sleep, and knowing with absolute certainty that his life had changed forever. He still didn't know that the next morning his mother would be waiting at the building's entrance with a proposal that would test everything they had built together. Sophia woke up in Ethan's apartment, wrapped in sheets that probably cost more than her monthly salary, but feeling richer than she had ever felt in her life. Morning light streamed through the large windows, and she could hear Ethan in the kitchen, probably making coffee. "Good morning, beautiful," he said when she appeared in the kitchen wearing one of his shirts. The sight of her in his clothes made something stir in his chest. "Good morning," Sophia replied. Still shy after the intimacy of the night before, Ethan pulled her into his arms, kissing her gently. "How do you feel?" "Happy," she admitted. "Different. Like everything has changed." "It has," he agreed. "For the better." They had coffee together, planning to spend the entire day together, something they rarely managed to do because of Sophia's multiple jobs. But the universe had other plans. Sophia's phone rang at 9:00 the morning. It was the supervisor from the building where she worked cleaning. "Sophia, I need you to come in today. The person covering your shift didn't show up, but it's Saturday and I told you I couldn't. It's an emergency. If you don't come, I'll have to reconsider your position here." Sophia closed her eyes, frustrated. She needed this job. "I'll be there," she said finally. Ethan, who had heard the conversation, shook his head. "Sophia, you can't live like this forever, being threatened every time you try to have a personal life. It's easy to say when you don't have to worry about money," she replied immediately, regretting her tone. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to sound ungrateful. You don't need to apologize. You're right. I don't completely understand your pressures." He held her hands. "But I want to understand. I want to help." Sophia left Ethan's apartment at 10:00 the morning, promising to call as soon as she finished work. She was still glowing from the night before, walking through the streets of Manhattan with a smile she couldn't erase. It was when she was waiting for the bus that a black Bentley stopped at the curb beside her. The rear window rolled down, revealing a woman of about 60 with perfectly styled blonde hair and jewelry that was probably worth more than a house. "Sophia Reynolds." The voice was polite but cold. "Yes, I'm Beatrice Hayes, Ethan's mother. I'd like to talk to you." Sophia felt her stomach drop. She had imagined that eventually she would meet Ethan's family, but not like this. Not when she was still processing the intensity of the night before. "Mrs. Hayes," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady, "it's a pleasure to meet you. Get in the car, please. It won't take long." It wasn't really an invitation. Sophia got into the vehicle, impressed despite herself with the luxurious interior. Beatrice Hayes was even more intimidating up close. She had that artificially preserved beauty that money could buy, and eyes that seemed to evaluate and calculate every movement. "You seem surprised," Beatrice observed as the car began to move. "A little." "I imagine so. Ethan doesn't usually bring people from your social circle home." The pause before people from your social circle was deliberate and cutting. "Mrs. Hayes, if you have something to say, please be direct." Beatrice smiled, but there was no warmth in the gesture. "I see you have personality. That explains my son's temporary interest." "Temporary. Dear, I'll be frank with you because I believe in respecting people's intelligence, even when they're out of their element." Beatrice opened an expensive purse and pulled out an envelope. "Ethan is going through a phase. He's always been idealistic, always wanted to save the world. You're part of that phase. Sophia felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. That's not true. What we have is real. What you have, Beatrice continued calmly, is a fantasy. Ethan will eventually realize he needs someone who can stand beside him in his world. Someone who understands the responsibilities that come with our name. The car stopped in front of a bank in Midtown. Beatrice handed the envelope to Sophia. There's $50,000 here. Enough money for you to finish college, get a decent apartment, start a real life. Sophia looked at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. Are you trying to buy me? I'm offering a solution that benefits everyone. You get the financial stability you clearly need, and Ethan can follow the path he was born to follow. And if I refuse, Beatrice's eyes hardened, then you'll discover how difficult it is to find work in this city when certain people decide you're undesirable. I have influence in more places than you imagine. Sophia felt nausea growing in her stomach. It wasn't just an offer. It was a disguised threat. I need to think about this. Of course, but don't take too long. Ethan is throwing a birthday party next week. It will be interesting to see how you feel among people who are truly suitable for him. The car stopped in front of the building where Sophia worked. She got out holding the envelope, her hands trembling. Sophia, Beatrice called before she closed the door. $50,000 is more money than you'll see again for a long time. Think about it. Sophia spent the rest of the day cleaning offices on autopilot. Her conversation with Beatrice echoing in her mind. $50,000. It was an amount that would completely change her life. She could finish college without killing herself working. She could help her mother. She could finally have the stability she had always dreamed of. But accepting would mean admitting that Beatrice was right, that what she and Ethan had was just a temporary fantasy. When she got home, she found 3 loving messages from Ethan on her phone asking how her day was and saying he couldn't stop thinking about her. Sophia sat on the bed with the envelope in her hands, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in her life, she had to choose between love and financial security, and she had no idea which choice she could live with the consequences of. For 3 days, Sophia carried the envelope with $50,000 in her purse, as if it were a bomb about to explode. She hadn't responded to Ethan's messages, claiming to be busy with extra work, but the truth was, she couldn't look at him knowing what his mother had offered. $50,000. The amount echoed in her mind during every work shift, every college class, every moment when she counted pennies to know if she could buy anything besides instant noodles for dinner. You've been weird this week, Laura observed on Thursday night, finding Sophia sitting in the kitchen staring at a cup of cold tea. Just tired. It's about that guy, isn't it? The special one. Sophia didn't answer, but Laura sat across from her. Sophia, what happened? Nothing. Everything I don't know. Sophia finally looked at her friend. Laura, what would you do if someone offered you enough money to change your life, but you had to give up something important to accept it? Depends on what's important. Love. True love. Laura was quiet for a moment. How much money? Sophia hesitated, then whispered, $50,000. Laura almost fell off her chair. $50,000. Sophia, that's a lifetime. You could get out of this situation for good. I know, but you're in love. I am. Laura held Sophia's hands across the table. Listen, I love you like a sister. So I'm going to be honest. Love doesn't pay rent. Love doesn't buy food. Love doesn't get your mother out of the tough situation she's in. Sophia felt tears beginning to form. But what if it's true love? What if it's the only chance I have to be truly happy? What if it's not? What if it's just a rich man having fun with someone different for a while? The words echoed exactly what Beatrice Hayes had said, and Sophia felt a chill in her stomach. On Friday, Ethan finally showed up at the restaurant where she worked. Sophia, you're avoiding me, he said, sitting at a corner table during her break. I'm not avoiding you. I've just been busy. Too busy to answer messages, too busy to see me. There was hurt in his voice. What happened? I thought we were okay after the other night. Sophia felt her heart break. Ethan seemed genuinely confused and hurt. Ethan, I need to tell you something. She told him about the meeting with Beatrice, about the envelope, about the offer. As she spoke, she watched Ethan's expression change from confusion to anger, and then to something that looked like defeat. My mother did this, he said finally, running his hands through his hair. God, Sophia, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. It is. I should have known she would do something like this. He looked at her intensely. But you're not going to accept it, are you? Sophia couldn't hold his gaze. Sophia? His voice became lower, more vulnerable. It's a lot of money, Ethan. It's dirty money. It's my mother trying to control my life by paying you to get out of it. But it's also my chance to have a decent life, to help my mother, to not kill myself working 3 jobs. Ethan was silent for a long moment. What about me? Doesn't what we have mean anything to you? It means everything, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. That's why it's so hard. Sophia, I can help you financially. I can. No. She interrupted him. Not like that. I don't want to be kept. I want dignity. And accepting money from my mother to leave me is dignity. The question was like a slap. Sophia had no answer. I need to think, she said finally. Then think. But think about what really matters. Ethan stood up. Because I love you, Sophia, not as a fantasy or a phase. I really love you. He left the restaurant, leaving Sophia alone with her tears and her impossible decision. That night, Sophia called her mother for the first time in weeks. My dear, how are you? The loving voice came through the line. Mom, if you had the chance to have a lot of money, but had to give up something important to get it, what would you do? Depends on what's important, honey. Love. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Sophia, do you know the story of how I met your father? A little. He was from a rich family. They offered me money to leave him. A lot of money. Sophia felt her heart stop. And did you accept it? I almost did. We were struggling. I was pregnant with you. It seemed like the sensible thing to do. What changed your mind? Your father showed up at my door the night before I was going to give my answer. He said it didn't matter what his family thought, that we were going to build our own life together. And we did. It was only a few years, but they were the happiest years of my life. Sophia closed her eyes, remembering the father who died when she was 12. Mom, do you regret not taking the money? Never, because I learned that true love is rare, honey. You can get money in many ways, but love, true love, you might only find once in your life. After hanging up, Sophia sat in the small room looking at the envelope on the dresser. $50,000 or Ethan, financial security, or the possibility of real happiness. The next morning, she made her decision. Sophia called Beatrice Hayes, and they arranged to meet at the same place where they had first talked. I hope you've made the right decision, Beatrice said when Sophia got into the Bentley. I have, Sophia replied, handing the envelope back. I won't accept your money. Beatrice's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, girl. You're choosing fantasy over reality. I'm choosing love over fear, Sophia replied, and I want you to know that no matter what you do, you won't be able to separate us. What Ethan and I have is real. We'll see, Beatrice said coldly. Sophia got out of the car, feeling as if she had just fought a battle. She had chosen Ethan, chosen love, chosen to believe that together they could overcome any obstacle. Now she just needed to find him and discover if he still wanted to fight for them, too. Sophia found Ethan in his apartment, sitting on the same couch where they had shared their first intimate night. He was looking out the window with a distant expression, and when she entered using the key he had given her the week before, he turned with a mixture of hope and apprehension on his face. Sophia, he said, standing up quickly, you came. I refused the money, she said without beating around the bush, watching immediate relief wash over his features. Ethan crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms. I knew you would make the right choice. It wasn't easy, Sophia admitted, resting her head on his chest. $50,000 is a lot of money for someone like me. And that's exactly why I know you truly love me, Ethan said, kissing the top of her head. Because you chose something uncertain with me instead of guaranteed security without me, Ethan. Sophia pulled back enough to look into his eyes. Your mother won't give up. She'll try to separate us in other ways. Then we'll have to prove to her that we're here to stay. How? Ethan smiled, and there was a determination in his eyes that Sophia had never seen before. First, I'm going to implement that idea you gave me, the social projects division in the company. I'm going to show my father that affordable housing can be profitable. What if he doesn't accept it? Then I'll start my own company with or without the family's approval. Sophia felt a wave of pride. Ethan was finally ready to fight for what he believed in. And second, he continued, I want you to quit at least one of your jobs. Ethan, listen before you refuse. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a real job. I want you to work with me on the housing project. You have insights about real needs that I would never have. Sophia remained silent, processing the offer. It would be fair pay for the work you would do, Ethan added. Not help, not a favor, real work. And your family. My family will have to accept that I'm no longer a boy they can control. Over the following months, Ethan kept his word. He presented a detailed proposal to his father about profitable housing projects, using market research and financial projections that Sophia had helped develop. To both their surprise, Robert Hayes was intrigued by the numbers. The affordable housing market has potential, he admitted during a tense meeting at the family office. But I want guaranteed returns. Dad, some investments are worth more than money, Ethan replied. They're worth reputation, legacy, social impact. Meanwhile, Sophia graduated with honors in business administration, working part-time on project development while maintaining only one job at the coffee shop, which had become more of a hobby than a financial necessity. The biggest test came 6 months after Sophia's decision to refuse the money. Ethan was throwing a party to celebrate the approval of Hayes Development's new social division's first housing project. It was at the same penthouse where they had met, but this time Sophia was there as Ethan's girlfriend, not as staff. Nervous? Asked Ethan, adjusting his tie as they prepared to leave. Terrified, Sophia admitted, smoothing the dress they had chosen together, elegant but not excessive. Everything will be fine. You belong in that place as much as anyone there. The party was packed with New York's elite, but the dynamic was completely different this time. Sophia was on Ethan's arm, being introduced as his girlfriend, receiving genuine compliments for her work on the housing project. Sophia, a familiar voice sounded behind her. It was Patricia Harrison, the same woman who had humiliated her months before. Patricia. Sophia replied calmly, I wanted to apologize for what happened last time. It wasn't appropriate. Sophia looked at the woman who had tried to make her feel small and insignificant. Thank you for the apology, she said, simply without resentment. The most tense moment came when Beatrice Hayes approached the couple. Ethan, Sophia. Her voice was cold, but not hostile. Mother, Ethan replied, holding Sophia's hand tighter. I saw the numbers for the housing project, Beatrice continued. Impressive. Sophia was fundamental in the development, Ethan said proudly. Beatrice looked at Sophia for a long moment. It seems I underestimated you, young lady. I just wanted a chance to show my worth through work, not through how much money I would refuse, Sophia replied with dignity. Something changed in Beatrice's expression at that moment. It wasn't complete acceptance, but it was respect. When the party was ending, Ethan took Sophia to the terrace where they had had their first real conversation. Remember this view? He asked. How could I forget? This is where it all began. Ethan turned to her, taking her hands. Sophia, these past months have been the best of my life. You taught me that it's possible to have success and purpose at the same time. You taught me that true love is worth more than social approval. Sophia felt her heart race when he got down on one knee. Sophia Reynolds, you've changed my life in every way possible. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Sophia's face when she saw the ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. When Ethan placed the ring on her finger, Sophia looked at the view of Manhattan stretching infinitely before them. 6 months earlier, she had been serving drinks in that same place, invisible and insignificant. Now she was there as an equal with a man who loved her, not despite her origins, but because of who she was. You know what's ironic? Sophia said, leaning against him. What? Your mother was right about one thing. You did save me, but I saved you, too. Ethan laughed, kissing her under the city lights. I think we saved each other. And there at the same penthouse where worlds had collided, two hearts found their home in each other, proving that sometimes true love doesn't just overcome social differences, it transforms them into strength. And so Sophia discovered that true love isn't about finding someone from your world, it's about finding someone willing to build a new world with you. Sometimes the courage to refuse what's easy leads us to what's extraordinary, because in the end, it's not differences that separate us, but rather the lack of courage to see beyond them. And maybe deep down, we're all looking for someone who sees us not for what we have, but for who we really are.